Captain's Log, Episode 43. This week's episode of the Beer Vengers podcast is sponsored by Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, located at 35-11 Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, Queens. Enjoy the eclectic array of craft beer, artisanal cheeses, and specialty grocery items at Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, home bar to yours truly, Captain Porter Brown Stout. This week, Captain and the Beer Wonder introduce you to two new and unique pours, fill you in on some local happenings, and give you a full travelogue of all the in-person beer vengering we've been doing. A brief programming note. For the remainder of the summer, we will be adhering to a moderately abbreviated release schedule, the scope of which has yet to be determined. Watch the social medias and our weekly newsletter for the details as they emerge. Remember to like, star, and subscribe us whenever that feels appropriate. And send us your emails at thebeervengers@gmail.com if you have any questions, suggestions, or if you just like hearing us talk about you on the show. And now, without any further ado, please enjoy episode 43. We sipped, we quaffed, we crushed it.
Well, we're the beer vengers, beer vengers, beer vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.
Welcome to the Beercast, everyone. Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Astoria, Queens, I am Captain Porter Brown Stout.
And coming to you from an undisclosed location in the County of Kings, it is I, the Beer Wonder.
And we are
The Beer
Vengers. Yeah, that's right. We are the Beer Vengers. So let everyone with us, whoever that everyone might be, whether it be domestic, international, or my favorite parts unknown, all the Beer Vengers out there and in here. How's your week been, Beer Wonder?
Oh, it's been good. It's been crazy. I am the world hasn't decided what it wants to do with the Beer Wonder from the last month, and so it's been a little of everything. So I'm looking for
Giving
things.
A lot of options, huh?
Too many options, which is never a bad thing. But it was a lovely week. We had some rain, we had some heat. I spent a little time by the beach. I was paid for it, so that's also good. And of course, I got to see you a number of the other Beer Vengers out and about in the world.
Yes, and we have a lot of stories about that as we're going forward. We got together. We had some individual experiences, and we're going to tell you all about that. But before we do any of that, Beer Wonder, let's get to the pours.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Captain, I am thrilled to find out what you've got today. So, what's it going to be?
I should go first. You think?
Yeah. It would only be polite.
Wow, only polite. Well, I'm flummoxed. As some people like hearing me say sometimes.
Excellent word, flummoxed. Oh, so good.
I'm fond of it. So I went to a new place this week, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in depth. A new place in Sunnyside called Sweet Avenue. From same guy who owns Judy and Punch, and also has had involvement in 1 Mile House and Rivercrest here in Astoria. And probably other places I don't even know about, but I had a nice chat with him. And he has a really interesting approach towards his bottle selection. This is it's both a bar and a can and bottle shop. And I got this can from him, and this is from our friends at Interborough.
Oh yeah.
And it's a collaboration between them and Bottle Logic. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, I know Bottle Logic.
I just heard them. Really, we were talking about it last night.
They're
out of Anaheim, I believe.
Yes, they're West Coast.
This is, and I know how much you like your math with your pie glass.
I do. You know.
This is Fuel for Fractions.
Oh well, there you go. And what is it calling itself?
It is an imperial stout.
Oh well, of course.
And it's also calling itself an 11% ABV. So let's check this out.
So blessed.
Yes.
Delightful crack right there.
Certainly is.
Always. All right, in the classic Astoria beer and cheese glass. Oh, I mean, here's the thing: it's pouring so fast, but it is jet black.
Yeah.
Very
subtle head.
Yes, we will be talking about just fractions of light coming through this beer because it is such a deep, dark, rich thing. Also, the can appears to have a little green on it because every once in a while it is disappearing into your background, which is a lot of fun.
That is fun.
But yeah, good, like caramelly colored head, kind of tan. Oh, it looks really beautiful.
Yeah, this is a good one. It's my second can I've had. So
Beautiful. All right. Well, today I am rocking a
Sponsored pour.
that's right. A sponsored pour from Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars at 35-11 Ditmars.
Yes, exactly. And
Excellent.
this one is a local-ish beer. It's from Garvey's Point, which is out on Long Island. It's near Glen Cove, based on
Oh,
what I
yeah.
could track down. Yep.
They do some good stuff.
Oh, always, yeah, really lovely. And this is their Bine Divine West Coast style double IPA.
Ooh.
Yes, so green with all sorts of gorgeous hop plants for the can art on there too.
Yes, it's a good
And
thing you're not using a green screen.
no, I would just the whole can would disappear.
Yeah.
And it's coming in at around 8.5%. So bold, a bold choice for the beer wonder. I mean, but let's see how it all turns out. Okay. It was a gentle crack.
It is.
Yeah.
Gentle
Okay.
but firm.
And no pie glass today, but let's see how this looks.
No. Oh, yeah. That is definitely. You said that's a West Coast style?
Yeah, it's going to be West Coast style.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
don't
gonna
see any haze there at all. It's,
no,
it's very,
none at all. Very clear. Good head, pretty decent sized bubbles, so solid amount of carbonation. Um, they're calling it trellis chopping, so I can imagine there's going to be a good balance of bitterness in this one. I'm very excited.
Oh, very good. Well, raise a glass.
Cheers.
Etc. That's very tasty.
Mm.
Is it really got to have that classic West Coast IPA?
Western. Well,
Yeah,
yes,
the
it's
traditional
got
style.
yeah, I mean it's really traditional, but the thing is, when you make it double IPA, it just smooths everything out. It's got this good bitterness up front. It's got a nice resin quality at the back. I love that word. And this one is got four different kinds of hops in it. Excuse me. It's hopped with Simcoe, Amarillo, Citra, and Columbus. So it's got a nice kind of unique profile. We're so used to these juice bombs, these hazy things, that just kind of like overtake your palate with fruitiness and juiciness and sweetness and floralness. It's just nice to get something that's just got that like bitter bite to it that a hop lover like me enjoys, as well as that like kind of resin undertone. It's just a very quaffable 8.5%. Watch out, world, because here I come.
Excellent. I'll have to try that one.
Oh, most definitely.
Well, I'm really enjoying this this one I have here, the Fuel for Fractions. I was reading something about it on their website, and this is
Yeah.
not the first time they've done it.
Oh, okay.
And both times it's been collaboration with the Bottle Logic. This one is specifically notable differently from the one previously.
Sure.
For one, because it's in a can and not a bottle, but
Okay.
also because this is free of adjuncts. The one before had I don't remember what they were, but they had a bunch of different adjuncts in them. But this is just this is traditional. But it does, but I do really it has that coffee, that chocolate, that sweetness. It's all there.
Oh
The
yeah.
sweetness is a little more subtle. I'm experiencing this slightly differently from the first time I tried it. First time I tried it, I definitely the sweet was a little more forward.
Sure.
And that maybe that's just, it's funny because some of that is like whatever you just ate. Sometimes
Right.
it's your palate genuinely experiencing it a different way. But this is really good.
And at an 11.5%, I'm curious how boozy it is.
11 solid.
11 solid. Oh, excuse me.
It I think, let's see, I'm looking at this thing here. I'm not really tasting a boozy.
Okay,
I mean, it's
interesting.
definitely thick and strong.
Yeah.
And more of a sipping than a crusher.
Sure.
At
11%, you'd hope it was a sipper, not a crusher.
I'm gonna have to admit, I had not really. I'm learning so much of the lingo from you guys doing this professionally. Is that the idea of an easy to drink beer, or what a quaffable, sippable, approachable, whatever, all those words we're having so much fun saying. The idea of like, oh, I'm just going to crush this, as the Glow Popper said last week.
Yes.
And the talking about a beer that you drink quickly being a crushable beer. That was
Yes.
something that's not lingo I've used, but I like it.
Well, that's one actually that I learned mostly from more mass produced or mass like market drinking beers. So they'll talk about
Okay.
crushing beers, so crushing Bud Lights and things like that. And then craft beer seems to have adopted it for our more lighter, easy drinkers. So it was the Globe Hopper who I think introduced me to how to use that word
Okay.
specifically around craft beer. But it was one thing that as I was working, with people and talking about beer, I would hear people who drink Coors Lights and Rolling Rocks and things like that, and Bud and whatnot, talking about how they, this is a crushable beer, or they would be crushing the
Okay.
beers, and it just meant it goes down like water.
And the
But
idea that if you have a craft beer that approaches it from that one to get the positive aspects of that, but maybe making something that's of higher quality,
yeah,
that's probably a good entree for people who like those beers into the craft beer world.
oh, most definitely, and I think it also tends to hit that like, oh, I could crush for my one of my favorite beers out there, the Tiny Juicy IPA from our friends at Five Boroughs Brewing Company.
Mhm.
That is a crushable beer because that stuff
Yeah,
goes down, but it tastes nothing like Bud Light. It's got a
of
nice fruity
course.
flavor. So, um,
Yeah, it really we've made fun from the beginning about the term drinkable because
mhm.
it's on the surface the term
Ugh.
drinkable just sounds like yeah you can drink it, it's drinkable, it seems like it's the beverage version of edible.
Yes. It's made with liquid, therefore it can be drunk.
But when you're comparing it to like, well, I guess quaffable, I think is
Right.
probably better than drinkable because
Yeah, I
it's you
agree.
just quaff it. And so if you're saying quaffable versus sippable, this is more
Yeah,
sippable, whereas that one would a crushable beer, a drinkable beer would be more quaffable,
exactly. It would be a highly quaffable beer.
highly
Exceptionally
quaffable.
quaffable.
Yes,
Much quaffing will happen. So,
yes.
well, speaking of quaffing beer this week, oh
Oh
my
yeah, we've done our share of it,
goodness,
haven't
there
we?
has been there has been a lot in the Beer Avenger universe this week that we need to catch our devoted listeners up on. Captain, I know you've made some solo adventures this week. Any that were particularly exciting for you?
Well, the most notable was the place where I got this beer. I think we might have mentioned it on the show last week.
Hmm.
Found out that this new bar slash bottle shop was opening up in Sunnyside. It's I believe it's on Queens Boulevard and
Hmm.
40th Street, not
Okay.
Avenue Street, 40th Queens Boulevard and 40th Street, right there under the 7 train.
Hmm.
And I had heard about it because our friends from Arkansas, who are friends of our friends at Acquired Tasting, who are friends of the Belgian Babe, had just
Yes.
happened to run across it and told her, and she told me, and I said, "Well, I got to see what's going on." And I was reading about it on Brew York, which I think is
Hmm.
still he does one of the best newsletters about what's going on here and other places these days.
Hmm.
But he had like a list of several. These are things that are happening. He had mentioned that they'd opened, so I decided to go over there on Monday afternoon, and I met the owner, Jared. I forget his last name, but Jared, the owner. He was the former owner of 1 Mile House. Although we heard that they went under. He
Yes.
divested himself of them before their pandemic related closing last year.
Gotcha.
But he also owns Judy and Punch in
Hmm.
Astoria on 30th Avenue. Had a lot to do with Rivercrest, which I talked about last week, where we went for brunch and had the loud football. But it's interesting because I guess that's one he just sort of helped them own. But if all the places I'm mentioning, they have a very specific style of menu.
Yeah.
Where they have they have it's on like a slate, and it replicates the logo, has the name of the beer
Right.
and ABV and all that. It's almost like 12 individual chalkboards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it was funny because before I went up to the bar and started chatting with the guy, I looked at their bottle and can selection,
Mhm.
and my first thought was, man, these seem a little bit high for a bottle shop. And then I found out later all the prices listed in there are for in-store consumption.
Oh, that's unusual.
And if for any of those, if you take them away, they knock off 40%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you
Hmm.
get the bottle shop prices if you take it out, but everything inside is priced for as if you're drinking it all there. Uh,
Yeah.
so like say if you're there and you see a $10 can of Cosmonaut, I'm just using that example because that's one I saw.
Sure.
That's actually a $6 if you're taking it home.
Oh, okay. All right.
This one I have is 12 if you want to drink it there. It's 7.20 to take home.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's very reasonable. It was funny. First started talking to him. I had this really incredible Finback beer, which I'll get. I posted it online. It's
Hmm.
really a fantastic. It was a barrel aged imperial stout, and there was coconut. And when I asked the guy behind the bar, when I asked Jared,
Hmm.
it's confusing because his name is spelled Gerard, like Monsieur Depardieu and Mr. Butler,
Yes, yes.
but it's pronounced Jared. So I was talking
Okay.
to Jared. I said, "Oh, does this have coconut in it?" He said, "Yeah, there's almonds." And the more I tasted, the more it reminded me of that cocoa nutter from Trillium that
Oh,
Nutpool had
right.
the first time he was on. We
Yes,
all
yes, yes,
shared
yes, yes.
in the
Hmm.
park a few days before that, and I said, "Yeah, I don't really see them around here, but they have some good stuff." And he went in the back and said, "Yeah, I just picked up this one from them, this peanut butter stout from them recently, and it was just from his own personal collection, and he just shared it with everyone there at the bar." So and so we wound up getting into a long discussion about the Beer Vengers because I had to tell why I knew the thing, and he very
Hmm.
well may be a guest. He may be a guest Beer Venger before you know it.
No,
Uh,
it's always good to have more.
although it does strike me that I think we had a hard time naming Rick White, didn't we?
We
I
did.
don't.
I don't know that we ever really came up with a.
So I had another idea about how when we start having more industry people on, I think the industry people, our association with them are like Batman's association with Commissioner Gordon.
Oh, okay.
We
I like
are
where we're
we are
going
we are
here.
we are we are helping them. They're helping us, of course, as well.
Exactly.
But they're more in they don't have an incognito existence, so maybe they don't need Beer Venger names.
No,
Uh,
that
but we're
tracks.
always happy to see them.
No, for sure.
Yeah. And you said you were telling me earlier you had a new place in your neighborhood you've been checking out.
Well, yeah. Well, it's a place that's actually been around for a while, but it's a seasonal location for us. So, again, I live in Dumbo in the County of Kings, and we're named for being down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass, which means that there is a big kind of carved out chunk of the Manhattan Bridge that is an archway, a really beautiful space that as the neighborhood has, become the hipster tech haven that it seems to be today. Now we have two breweries and a distillery, so we're really pulling our weight finally. They've started to program underneath that. So, last year, of course, was sort of an off year for programming with pandemic and whatnot. But in their commitment this year to, really bring people back to the neighborhood and have people spending money at small businesses and, going to shops, they are doing something under the archway every single day all summer.
Oh wow.
So there's a lot happening. And
Little like pop-up shops?
yeah, pop up. Well, so every day or every Sunday, Brooklyn Flea is there. On Wednesdays they do like a sip and paint kind of thing where they have artists from the neighborhood who will put up things and then they will show you how to like paint along. And the sipping comes from the place that I swung by, which is the Dumbo Station, which is an outpost right here in the archway. The archway they've permitted so that you can actually drink alcohol under the archway.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's almost like kind of drinking in a park kind of situation. So as long as you stay within the signs on there, you can buy a beer from or a glass of wine from Dumbo Station and sit down at one of the picnic tables there and have a beverage. Now it's loud; you can't really have a great conversation. There's trains and cars going over the top of the thing. But I swung by one day on a Saturday after work, and they had programmed some live music in there, and it was pretty late. I think it was getting closing in on like 8:30 when I got there, and I was just like, it's too nice out. It's still too warm out. I don't want to go in my apartment yet. I don't want to be home. So I
Yeah.
swung by and I grabbed myself a beer from them, 6 Point, and just sat and enjoyed the outdoors. And it was sort of one of those things where it's an expensive beer. It's for because you're paying for the atmosphere and the environment, but it is one of those great, like, where else can you sit underneath a bridge and drink a beer in New York City legally? I mean, you could do
Right.
it anytime you wanted, but there was just something kind of lovely about it. So should you find yourself in the County of Kings hanging out in Dumbo, go swing by Dumbo Station. They are only open during the summers, and it looks
Hmm.
like a little train car on the outside. So they have little lights and
Okay.
a train car, and they have in the past had connections with a great restaurant in the neighborhood called Superfine. So good to see them back. I had beers with them, of course, in the past, but it had been a while, so it was a notable like return existence to
Cool.
drinking in the neighborhood.
Yeah, it reminds me a little of a little place they used to do. And they might be doing it this summer. I'll have to now. You've inspired me. I got to go look it up.
Hmm.
There's a place. It's right down where the Kaufman Astoria Studios are.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And there's a block that a couple. I don't know when I say couple. It could be a couple. It could be 10. could be
Mhm.
5, I don't know. Where they got to a point where they basically own part of the residential street there.
Oh wow. Okay.
I think it was all their buildings there anyway. So they closed it to traffic so they can just use that whole street for filming for when they have to do
Oh cool.
outside
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
and a few times they use that couple of block space for something very similar. It's just like a whole
Mm.
bunch of like places to eat and drink, and you can do it there. And it's just all these, so, I mean, mostly they're from local businesses who have permanent places, but they're all just doing that to sort of promote it. And it was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Similar thing at the LAC Flea,
Oh sure.
which is right across from where Rockaway is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. I love those outdoors that when like restaurants bring that little outdoor vibe. For the longest time here in Dumbo, we had all these office workers. Of course, we don't have any right now, or we have a few right now, but not a ton. But there were no great lunch places in the neighborhood. Good places to
Hmm.
have dinner, but like nothing great for lunch. We finally got one of those chain salad places. I honestly can't remember the name. And Timeout Market has now opened up, which occasionally does lunch. But because you had
Oh
this
yeah, you were going to take us there when Huck and I were
exactly.
hanging out with you down there.
Yeah. But and they're back, which is nice to see as well. They have a happy hour that I need to check out. But
Well, those are the two things on my list to hang out with you in your neighborhood for: the Timeout Market and the Randolph Rooftop.
oh yeah, well definitely it's a day for that. But the we used to
Are,
have
are 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 they open during the day as well?
Randolph Rooftop. Yeah, people actually
Okay.
when I was chatting them up gosh, because I pick up a farm share now from Randolph on once a week, and I was
Yeah.
chatting up one of the bartenders while I was waiting to pick my stuff up, and they mentioned that people are using it like a co-working space now.
Okay.
So they'll because Randolph opens up pretty early, but they'll go and sit on the roof and have a beer, kind of like I've been doing with Evil Twin, and work. I you know I. In the dog day in the hot days of summer, sitting on a rooftop at noon typing on a computer doesn't really, with no shade, does not really seem like my idea of a good time. But honestly, 4 o'clock rolls around and I could be totally down with that. So
Oh, very good.
yeah, but yeah, so it's it's good times here, and hopefully but with the lunch places thing, they used to actually fill the entire archway with small food vendors every day for lunch during the summer,
Well,
so that people had places to get lunch in the neighborhood. And of course, that all went away mid-pandemic, but I certainly
sure.
miss all of the great little like food truck adjacent places that were just kind of showing up once a week
Yeah.
or a couple times a week to serve everybody in the neighborhood.
Excellent.
So, yeah. Well, we've had in addition to our solo adventures, though. Oh my goodness, the beer adventures have been quite busy this week with
We certainly have. Yeah.
two very very important meetings that happened. Should we do a little recap for folks who may not have been able to join us?
Well, yeah. I mean, a couple weeks ago we had the former Molly, now shady or hazy lady, I should say.
Hazy lady,
The
yes,
hazy
hazy lady.
lady. There's actually a bar in my neighborhood called Shady Lady. That's why my
Mm,
brain always goes there first. But yeah, the hazy lady, and you may recall that she announced that she is relocating to Chattanooga, Tennessee, very soon.
yes.
And she had some beer in her refrigerator, so she decided to have the beer ventures over to help her get rid of it. And boy, did we deliver!
Oh yeah. I have very limited memory. I showed up late, and you guys had already done good work
Yes,
while I was there. But I have there's a point at which the memories get a little bit hazy on that evening.
sure.
Were there any beers that you thought were particularly exciting from that adventure that you
Oh,
recall?
there was one early on. It was a sort of a maple imperial stout
Hmm.
that was from some brewery in Georgia,
Okay.
and and I will I'll just say that because I don't remember any more details.
Yeah.
It was someplace I'd never heard of, and I immediately started thinking, oh, what breweries do I do in Georgia? Because the other ones I knew were Sweetwater, and the
Right.
one we had on here, Wild Leap, which which Hazy Lady told me that comes from a kind of a redneck neighborhood,
Ooh,
uh, but
it's the hot gossip right there.
well, it was funny because that led to a whole conversation about how so many breweries don't open in trendy neighborhoods; they make neighborhoods trendy
Right. Correct.
because they are not they're all looking for a low overhead. And
Yeah.
if breweries become popular, people will come there and hang out no matter where they are.
Yes. That's right. Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
go
No,
ahead.
and you need space, and so of course in a hip neighborhood, space is at a premium. So
Right, right. I mean, that's why even the single cut is this is a hip neighborhood here. I mean, it already was a little when they moved in, but the part of Astoria single cut is in is a little more off the beaten path.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I'm sure they got a good deal for that space there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things beers that I really enjoyed. Again, this was a bit later in the evening. But
Yeah. And anyone listening out there, we are definitely going to be. I think we might have published some of this before, but the kill wall from that night, where you can see all these beers we're talking about, even the ones I can't remember the names of.
mhm.
I will put that on our Instagram feed soon.
Perfect. Yeah. One of the things that was exciting for me though was, so it was you, me, of course, the Hazy Lady,
Yeah.
Hawk and Cider Girl were there, Globe Hopper and his wife were there, and then another friend of the Hazy Ladies was joining us, and she had brought along some Polish beers.
Yes.
And that is a style that I'm not super familiar with, despite my knowledge of what Keg and Lantern has done and some of the ways that they brew alongside that. But the Polish beers that we had, the Polish beer that we had, I thought was actually quite good. It
Yeah.
for me, it had that sort of bud lightness that I'm expecting from a mass produced beer, but it actually had flavor, and it was fun.
I'm
I would
fairly certain I've seen that beer at Bohemian Hall, the beer garden.
Yes. Yeah, it was fun to have that sort of added into our world, as that is, I think, by American terms, probably like, imported beer, but it scratches the same kind of itch that craft beer nerds enjoy because it's got good
Yeah.
flavor to it, it's got interesting depth to it. It was a fun beer to get a chance to drink.
Are you
Um,
going to hazard a try at pronouncing it?
oh, absolutely not. It has a Z
Well,
with a
I am.
slash through it.
I
Do
think
it.
it was something like Żywiec. Am I
Good. You
close?
said
I
it, not
think.
me. I think
Yeah.
that sounds about right.
Well, yeah.
Uh,
Kasha helped guide us through it, and
yes.
no one would get it right twice, but every once in a while we get the name of it. The point is, I'm like, that's the closest I've heard it. That's okay. We don't
Yes.
sound like Polish people, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
We wouldn't necessarily be left away.
Yeah. Well, and I thought, I mean, it was fun to hang out with everybody. Also, Hazy Lady ordered some pizza from Williamsburg Pizza that I thought was truly exceptional. And I
Yes.
don't think that that was just my mildly drunken state talking. Um,
No, it was very good, and she had some
mhm,
garlic knots from there as well. I
mhm,
also should I think we should shout out everyone who was there. It was not
mhm,
only Hazy Lady and us, but Huck and Cider Girl and Globe Hopper
mhm,
and his wife. I
mhm.
sound like I'm doing the opening credits for Gilligan's Island.
Right.
The Globe Hopper and his wife.
Mhm.
Which I won't name her because and it's not because I don't remember her name. It's because she might become a beer venger herself soon, and
I know.
I don't want to compromise her identity
No, we
any
can't
more
do that.
than is
Can't do
necessary.
that at
No.
all. Yeah. But yeah, we had great pizzas there, and then we headed up to the Hazy Lady's
Well, because
beautiful
even though
roof.
the
Yeah.
whole thing was like she said, you don't need to bring any beer. I've got plenty of beer. She underestimated the beer vengers.
Yes.
I was the louse among us who took that completely. Yeah, it's like one of those things where they tell you don't bring gifts and you
Right.
bring gifts anyway. And I
Right.
took it at face value and didn't bring anything. So you and Huck
Well.
and Cider Girl all brought stuff, and we
Well,
still ran out,
and
and
we
that's why
did.
we had to go out to a bar.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We had to head over to Barcade in Williamsburg, which
Yes,
again was my very first time. You had been to Barcade earlier, and I had asked
very
you,
recently. Yeah.
yeah, the previous week on the beer cast, what it was like. I was first off continue to be impressed by their beer list. I thought it was
Oh yeah, I had a
pretty
really
delightful.
good Allagash from a stout from them.
Yes,
Again, don't remember the name. North Coast, maybe. I don't. No, it's not.
that might
No,
have been.
North.
Yeah,
See, that's I shouldn't even try when I don't remember.
it's a
But
good night of drinking when you don't remember. So and I had a good IPA there, but it was the first time I'd been in a bar that was sort of that hopping with people, because of course people are
at
not just there to
11
have beer.
o'clock on a Sunday night.
Yeah, exactly, they're there to play games too, so
Yeah,
there's a lot of
yeah.
touching that was happening,
There
which
was a
took
lot
me
more going on there than when I was at the one in St. Mark's the week before in the middle of a weekday afternoon.
right. Yeah, but I guess a bunch of people on a Sunday night in Williamsburg, if they're all working from home, yeah, they
Yeah,
can like drink late into the night, play some video games, go home, roll out of bed, and move into whatever conference call they have at 9 o'clock in the morning.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, and I was really happy to be back in that space. I know it has great memories for me, so it was really fun to spend time with everybody there.
yeah.
Um,
It's funny because I mean I back when we were first before we I think we were calling ourselves what we were just like we weren't calling ourselves the Beer Avengers, but we were looking for beer events to come and hang out at. I
Right.
remember going there something like 7 years ago
Mhm.
with Huck and Cider Girl, and just going there because they were doing a Founders Tap takeover.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was, and I remember watching Cider Girl absolutely destroy Miss Pac-Man.
Well, yes, that's the game will never end if she isn't destroyed.
Well, that's true. That is true.
Oh, you mean she did really well? All right, I
Yes,
thought you
she
were
did.
saying that she,
No,
because even if you get an extra player now and again, you're ultimately going to destroy your player 3 or 4 times
right. No, but yes, but
minimum.
right, but she, but no, Cider Girl,
Yes,
like
no, she's very skilled at it. You're right.
Miss Pac-Man is her game. I on the other hand, the beer tapper game, which is either like a root beer,
I'm pretty good at that one. Yeah,
yeah, that uh tends to be one that like I tend to be okay with. But I see it branded as Budweiser sometimes, and I see it branded as root
yeah.
beer, and I'm always like, oh, I know you're trying to make
I,
this a
I
kids game, but like it's
I think
beer.
I've seen Budweiser more than anything else. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it is beer, and also you know, so we talked about what decades that we were born in. I was born in the late 60s. You were
Mhm.
born a bit later. And so for
Just a tad.
people, it's great that people who don't necessarily remember physical of video arcades
Mhm.
get into those too, because I think a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of what Barcade was started for was people when I was in my teenage years, that was a thing. We didn't have video game consoles. We would all, I mean, anyone who's listening to this of a younger generation who sees Stranger Things knows what we're talking about. If you've seen any movie from the 80s, you know that was where it was sort of like you're too young for a bar, but you go there and you're all hanging out
Right.
and so a lot and any of these places they're all sort of dedicated to that era. You're
Yeah.
looking at something like Tapper or
Mhm.
Centipede or Millipede or
Yeah.
Gauntlet or any of those things. It's all just a flashback to that youthful period.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I will say I lived the very tail end of that as a child
Dig
born in
Dug.
the
I didn't
80s.
mention Dig Dug. That's one of
Oh,
the
yep.
obscure ones that isn't the most popular, but I like very much.
Yeah. Yeah, but I lived the very, very end of the arcade era in the 90s when I feel like that was when it sort of started to take a dive as home video game systems became real. But yeah,
Okay.
there was a arcade in downtown Minneapolis that I distinctly remember going to a few times.
Yeah.
But my parents
I
never.
spent way too many hours in those places for me to
Yeah,
admit to, but I'm
yeah,
admitting now because
because we're
because
here.
you're
Well,
all beer
and
Avengers.
yeah,
There are no secrets among beer Avengers while beer Avengers are beer Avengering
very true. And also, like,
in the beer Avenger sphere.
in the Beer Avengers sphere, that's very true. Well, I thought it was just a lovely night. Like, I
I
just thought
thought
it
so
was a
too. Yeah, it was
super
great.
fun, and I know Hazy Lady is off in, I think, 10 days or
9 or 10
so.
days. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. She's off to new adventures, so she has already proposed a Beer Avengers meetup in her new undisclosed location.
Yeah.
So perhaps coming soon.
Coming soon.
Mhm.
Exactly. And so that was a really great night. And then last night, 2 nights later,
Yes.
it's always funny when we're speaking in time here. We didn't even introduce this as a day drinking with Captain of the Beer Wonder this week, even though it kind of is, even though it's a little bit later.
Yeah.
But as they say, it's always 2 o'clock somewhere.
Correct.
It's a bastardization of the old
I don't know
quote.
where it is 2 o'clock right now, but I'm not
Well,
willing to do
I
that
know
math.
it's like I mean on the West Coast it's not even 4 yet. So
That's true. That's true. So somewhere in the
so
middle of the
this is
Pacific.
in the spirit of our
Yeah.
day drinking adventures. If you want to call it beer, if you want to call it a happy hour with
There we
Captain of
go.
Beer Wonder, that works too. We're not going to
Although
put it
it's
in the title, I don't
yeah.
think, but we'll figure. If you listen to this during the day, we hope you can still get that vibe. Um, anyway, so as we were saying, so on Tuesday night was when we all met up for Huck's birthday.
Yes. Now I would like to backtrack on this for just a moment because
Oh
I feel
yes,
like
please.
beginning stories. I don't want to trigger it. I'm doing
Yeah,
everything I can not trigger it. Of how this happened are an important detail. Okay.
sure.
So Huck, Captain, and I were all meeting up at the Pony Bar, and
Yes.
we were having a beverage together. It was very exciting. It was the first time the three of us had been there in a bit. You heard
And
about
it
it.
was their 12th year anniversary.
Yes,
Longtime listeners remember us talking about that.
yes, it was a birthday, and so knowing that Huck does enjoy some sort of like a crawl or some sort of an adventure to breweries for his birthday, I casually asked what he was doing for his birthday. To which Huck said, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to do anything." And I was like, "No, Huck, you realize I took off of work that day. So now we need to do something." And Huck was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't know. And so we kind of batted around a couple ideas, the three of us, and we came up with the idea of doing this crawl on Third Avenue that we'd been very excited about. I was like, great, I'll like write up a whole thing when we can like start inviting people and whatnot. And then during Huck's drinking adventures at his Insider Girls place that we had a couple weeks ago,
July 4th,
July 4th, there we go. Uh,
American
uh,
Independence Day.
praise it. I was there, and as I am coming to join them, I get a message on Facebook Messenger from Cider Girl saying that the Beer Wonder has invited everyone to Huck's birthday party. Beer Wonder, tell us what we're doing. And I was like, okay, great. I'll like make a list of the things and like put out some timings and things like that. Within 12 hours of Cider Girl sending that, Huck had pulled together a full itinerary with times and even added in a food stop. So I just have to I claim many people are saying that this I claim credit for this. I need to remove Beer Wonder's hand from this as simply being the person who gently nudged Huck to do this, because Huck did truly plan his own birthday crawl, and boy did he plan a great crawl.
He did, and in fact, when it was initially set up, I thought these all look good, and we're trying to arrange it around people who work as well as those of
Mhm.
us who are working a little bit less than others.
Mhm.
And I saw where these places were, and I said, I think Owl Farm needs to be in there.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
But there were enough in the time frame we were looking at, so I just said, you know what? I'm an hour before this whole thing. I'm going to be at Owl Farm because I miss Owl Farm and I want to go there.
Oh, it's such a good place.
And Huck met up with me there.
Oh,
I was
lovely.
there a little later than I'd planned because I decided if I'm going to 4 breweries and a bar, I'd better get my exercise in immediately before. So
Fair.
I biked on City Bike, and that was its own adventure. Uh, I gotta say that neighborhood has some great bars, but not a lot of city bike racks with gaps.
Hmm.
I basically had to walk the last 9/10 of a mile, but so I was very thirsty when I got there, and
Yeah.
Huck beat me there. Huck beat me there by about 15 minutes, and I had a really nice there's a barrier that I had,
Mm.
and Captain Lawrence, which is will factor
Yeah.
into the hookups later. They had a really nice pastry stout. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of Captain Lawrence.
No.
They're still around, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like as far as the places I used to see them, I don't see them as much. And the ones and like my favorite ones of all time, there are Brown Bird and Frost Monster, and I haven't seen them.
Hmm.
But so it was nice to get this pastry stout they had. And we hung out there for about half an hour or a little bit
Mhm.
more. And well, the fun part was we started talking about. I was talking about Sweet Avenue before,
Yeah.
and the bartender knows Jared because they used to work at 1 Mile House together.
Oh, how funny. That's
And
awesome.
just funny, like how small the whole beer community is.
Yes.
But then so then eventually we left there and we walked down to Strong Rope Brewery.
Yes. Now, I'm a big fan of Strong Rope. I believe that they're also celebrating their seventh, I want to say, birthday.
And they just opened a second location in Red Hook.
Well, technically a third location because
Oh,
they have an
third location.
upstate one as well. Yes, Strong Rope has done very well for
Wow.
themselves. And they are one of those farm breweries that you were talking about the last time
So
we talked about
same
Brewing
as Big
Laws.
Alice, but in a different order. Big Alice went to
Yes,
Queens, Brooklyn, then upstate. Strung
exactly.
Rope went to Brooklyn, upstate, and then another Brooklyn.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, Red Hook is becoming a bit of a hot spot. We'll have to take an adventure over there
We
because
will,
there's all
yeah.
sorts of good things happening. But yeah, I know Jason the brewer. He's a quirky, fun guy. I love the way he names his cans. And we had a pretty I feel like we started off pretty strong with some nice beers there.
Yes,
Um,
I wound up getting a dark mild, just mostly because it was a lot of their stuff is more of a medium ABV.
yeah.
And I'd already had a couple of sort of heavier ones at Owl Farm, and I knew we had trying to pace myself. So you know what? I'll have a 4%er here.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to start, to build up
Yeah.
to it. I had one of their IPAs. Jason always does good stuff with IPAs. Did want to call out though Huck's beer, which was their Pride Saison. which is a bold choice for a pride beer because what I think about pride beers being, they don't tend to wind up being kind of a really interesting saison, and it was pretty delicious. I kind of was envious of that
Excellent.
beer after he gave me a little taste. Um, so by that point, it was you, me, uh, Huck, and
And
Cider
Cider Girl,
Girl,
yes.
and then Mother Pucker showed up a little
Yeah.
bit later, and I feel like once she showed up, the palette of beers we started tasting for the evening kind of opened up in a unique way.
Yeah.
Because she's good at pushing us a little bit out of our comfort zones.
She is. She is. And in fact, at the next place we went to, which
Mm,
was Finback, the
yeah.
Brooklyn Finback.
Yes.
I'd been to the one in Queens before, the original one in Queens, but I had not been
Mhm.
to the Brooklyn one before. In fact, she does push us out of her comfort zones, but I forget that she is more than just a sour fan. It
Yes,
is her
that's true.
favorite thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
and since we're sort of all vaccinated and regressing to our not regressing, regaining
Hmm.
our pre-pandemic behavior of when your friends hanging out together drinking beer, you're sharing your beer glasses with everyone with you.
Just little sips.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, but it's like there's no like fear of it. Just yeah, it's no, we're not like drinking
Yeah.
each other's saliva. We're just saying here, have a sip of this, have a sip. Oh, you got to try this one.
Yeah.
And I got this really wonderful imperial stout.
Hmm.
There, it was called Parentheses,
Oh
and
yeah.
it was a collaboration with I think Equilibrium.
Hmm.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think that's about right. That
Yeah, I
sounds right.
think I
We'll check
know it
for
was
the
a
hookups next
collaboration,
week.
but I did not. I was so focused on Mother Pucker and her sours that I didn't initially offer her a taste, and I felt bad about that.
Well, it's okay because later the Belgian Babe showed up
And then she
and
said
helped
I
us out
have
with
to
it.
have the parentheses, so she righted my error as she often
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Well, I had a couple fun ones that are a little bit sort of off brand for me, if you will.
Yeah,
Because first I had their dot dot dot, which is a Foder Pilsner. So it's got that nice Pilsner sweetness, that breadiness to it, that that really distinctive Pilsner malt taste, but it's also got a little bit of funk to it, which is kind of lovely.
yeah.
And I gotta say, they poured it into this beautiful Pilsner glass. It was a nice slow
They really have
pour.
incredible glassware there.
Oh, gorgeous glassware, yeah. And the foam, the bartender who was pouring it, it extended a solid like half inch over the top. It was just this thing of beauty. I was sad I forgot to take a picture of it, but it was just utterly delicious. And then I also went in for a California Common, which is also not a beer that I think most of us, at least within the beer Avenger sphere, we don't tend to drink California Commons. I don't know if
I
that.
don't think I'd ever even heard of one before it was made. I thought that was just the name of it. I didn't realize that was a style.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a style of beer. Anchor Steam,
Oh, okay.
sort of premiered it, and it's really the kind of the first and only really American style beers. I guess you could say the IPA craze and New England style IPAs are like also American style beers, but
Uh-huh.
IPAs are British. So it's a really like American-y beer. It's one of the only beers I've ever brewed on actual equipment when I got a chance to brew over at Keg and Lantern.
Yeah.
But they're just really malty, bready beers, and this one was just I just thought it was really nice. It's really kind of delicious. I don't know. You had a taste of it, I think.
I had a taste of it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna admit it was at that point my third stop, so some of it was already starting to blend together a bit. But I loved everything I tasted, and I'm glad. The other one I had there was their Black is Beautiful, which I was glad to
Oh,
finally be able to sample because I
yes.
felt that like when we were doing that was our fourth or fifth show. We did a whole show about
Yeah.
Black is Beautiful,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've featured some other stuff from then since then. But I love the Finback stouts so much that I had been searching for it here.
Hmm.
Yeah, my Seatown over on 28th Avenue allegedly had it. And I went there and I
Right.
even asked him, like, do you have this? Am I not looking in the right places? That never had it. So this finally I got to have it and I had it on draft and it was great. And I also brought home with me their 7th anniversary stout. I know the people who
Ooh.
are listening to our to the episode we had a while back where we had the new Finback we had the Finback. It was the 7th year anniversary triple IPA
Yes.
that
Yes.
was
Yes.
so
Yes.
great. This was another one they did for their 7th anniversary, and it was their 7th anniversary imperial stout. So I have that sitting in my beer fridge, and we'll save it for a very special occasion
Yeah.
soon.
I gotta say, I want to call out that Black is Beautiful beer because it was just so good. It was
They're really good at
coffee
that
and
stuff. Yeah.
coffee and chocolate, and I mean, it was just I wanted to I wanted to drink a lot of it,
Yeah.
and I don't like dark
But we had
beers,
more
so
places to go, so we
I
couldn't
know,
do that.
I know we had to keep ourselves going. So
Yeah, so we headed off to Wild East.
yeah, and Wild East, they're known for their sort of like funky beers, and
Yeah.
I had their IPA, I thought it was good, but Mother Pucker had a peach sour that was off the chain. She went to the bartender who was working the bar solo and doing an admirable job that evening because
Yeah.
there were a lot of people there, and asked him for his like craziest sourest sour, and this is the one that he proposed. It came in a bottle, and I wound up tasting a little bit of it, and I just thought it was truly out of this world. Although, if we can quickly circle back to Finback, I
Oh,
do want to
sure. I'm
just
sorry. I didn't
no,
mean to jump
no,
ahead.
it's okay. I just wanted to plug in. Speaking of Mother Pucker, she ordered their coconut goza, which started with salt and
Oh,
ended with
yeah.
coconut, and
I
it
do
was
remember that one.
yeah, and it was a journey. I think everyone who drank it was like, oh, and it was a sort of a consistent sound around everyone who tasted it. So she was again
Yes.
expanding that palate for us a little bit, getting more sours into our diet. Which Huck had a few sours too. The sourpuss was really coming out for him, but
Sure.
it was the kind of thing where like we don't usually drink sours when we're together unless someone is pushing that charge. And I feel like she and Huck were really bringing that into our conversation, our beer
Yeah.
drinking conversation. We'll call it that, right?
Yes, our beer drinking conversation. Yeah, there was I had one there that we've might have even had on the show. I think it might have been but see, I thought I had these ones listed, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm having a hard time finding them. But it'll come to me anyway. But yeah, we had great beers there. Also, they had a nice situation there where we could order food from another place directly from the table.
Yeah.
Do you know remember what that pizza place was?
It was a scan a QR code thing. Cider Girl took care of that for us. But they had
Right.
also a great grandma pie, which was delightful. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I also loved their water dispenser, which is a little lion spigot with lion with a spigot out of its mouth, and you push a foot pedal down, which will then fill a glass for you. And so I was having a lot of fun hands free filling water glasses for people. Yeah.
Yeah. The lion. I weirdly we've had a few of their standard deviation was the one I was
That was
trying to
it.
remember.
Yes.
We've had that a few times, and it was very good. Um, and I had not noticed the lion theme before. And once you
Oh
do,
yeah,
he's like, "How did I not see this before?"
yeah.
Uh,
Well, this was my first time. I think it was all of our. I had purchased beers to go from Wild East in pandemic
huh.
times, but I'm pretty sure this was everyone's first time actually being at the physical location. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so. I think so. The other
Yeah.
one I had was an imperial stout called Non-Compliance. It was very good.
Right. I recall that from you. Yeah. Um, so, and then after we were done with that, we stumbled. Now, we should just be clear: the distance from Strong Rope to Finback was across the street.
Right.
The distance to from Finback to Wild East was around the block
Yeah.
ish, halfway around the block, I guess. And then our final location was another halfway around the block to Threes.
Yes. And had some really I didn't they did not have much of what is my general what I'm inclined towards, so it was challenging in that
Mhm.
way. But I don't know, I had some kind of a sour and it was good, and that's all I'm able to remember right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to dunk on Threes, but it was a Tuesday night. The place was hopping,
It
just
was packed. Yeah. I
packed.
remember. I the last time we were there and we talked about it on the show. I don't think it was quite. You had said it was packed. I don't think it was, but compared to last night, it was definitely packed. I'm amazed we were able to find that big table for us.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, the crowd at Three. I mean, Threes makes good beers. I also really appreciate that they sell other people's beers
Yeah.
as a part of their list. So they're kind of like half bar, half brewery situation. I had a lovely beer from them. It was an IPA. I had a very short pour of it because I was already feeling the effects more than I
Yeah.
had wished. But I often find that the crowd at Threes is a smart crowd, but there's always a lot of people there. I don't think I've ever been there and
Yeah.
been like, oh, I can just kind of like quietly sit. Where even though I felt like Wild East was busy, it didn't feel like we were taking up. It felt like we had plenty of room. It didn't feel like there were people on top of us. It didn't feel crowded.
Gowanus is really one of those neighborhoods. I mean, and in a different way, when we talked about Pony Upper East Side, has some of these things too. It's just where sometimes when I'm in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm too old and not cool enough.
Well, you are always cool enough, Captain.
Well, I know I am for you, but it's
Yes.
like it's one of those things where like I like these beers, but this is it's and it's worth going there because the beer
Oh
is
yeah,
wonderful.
the
But
beer
yeah,
is
but it is like
exceptional.
I found like both being there and at Finback, I'm like, okay, um, I'm definitely not too hip for the room.
Yes, yes, and I mean Strong Rope also. Although and I do want to shout out to our incredible bartender at Strong Rope who also works at Coney
Oh
Island.
yeah, she's fantastic.
She was out of this world, just truly, truly wonderful. Um, but yeah, I thought it was a wonderful birthday crawl. I just thought it was a nice, like a really delightful Third Avenue,
Yeah,
everything close by, really good beers across the board. Good way to get everyone together back out in the world as we're continuing to explore what it means to do things like this.
absolutely, it was great.
Mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, that was the end of it, and I eventually made it back home. I guess we all did,
So
and I wonder how did.
Belgian Babe joined us, of course. And how
Oh,
did
did we not mention her? We did. We
did
mentioned.
yeah,
We
I did
mentioned that she showed up at Finback and was
right.
there for the rest of the time. Yeah.
Yes. Now I just want to check. You didn't bike home, did you?
Oh no, no,
Okay. Good. Good. Good.
Found the end train eventually.
Mm, mhm.
Well, I first started to head towards the wrong direction,
Ah, that happens.
but it was pointed out to me that like no, that this is the Brooklyn bound side. Let's cross the
Yes.
street, and we did, and I was grateful to her for that.
Wonderful. I will say I also had a bit of a train adventure coming back, which again means we had a good beer venger evening, right?
Yes, yes, that's true.
Yes. But yeah, I wound up accidentally making my way into Manhattan, getting all the way to 14th Street before backtracking and taking the F train back to my undisclosed location.
Yeah.
So, you know, but hey, beer vengers always beer venge safely. And we
And a
always get home
wonderful
afterwards.
time was had by all.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I'm curious, do you have any fun beer venturing plans for this coming week?
I don't know. When we're done with this, let's make some.
Yeah, we'll have to find a time. It'll be fun to figure out what to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I hope I hope anyone is listening. I hope lots of people are listening. I hope no one from the Blind Tiger is listening and keep expecting us to show up because I feel bad how many times we mentioned them and haven't actually gone. So I think we need to go there very soon.
I think so.
Uh,
I do.
I feel less bad about not having made it to Staten Island yet. I feel safe going out there, but as we're seeing the Delta variant expand and their vaccination rates being as low as they are, um, I'm not as eager to go there.
Yeah. No,
I am.
yeah. Well,
I did actually. Here's another thing though. I
Mhm.
did make some plans for a little further down. I will definitely be attending the Golden Mile in Dayton on August
Woohoo!
28th. I bought
It's
my plane
exciting.
ticket yesterday to visit for yes to sort of straddle my father's 80th birthday and the Golden Mile. And immediately this morning, I got some requests to work one of those days.
Oh,
Fortunately, it's virtual, so I can do it on that Monday in my dad's house. If it
perfect.
worked well enough for me to record 2 episodes of the Beer Avengers there, I think I can do some virtual client work with New York Law School.
Perfect.
So
Well,
I'm very
see.
much looking forward to that. I do
Yes.
have one brief huck up
Okay.
from last week. The Globe Hopper was talking about how there was some Three Floyds beer that had military theme to it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
I thought it might be Hop Commander. Hop Commander is Captain Lawrence beer.
Oh, Captain
As anyone
Lawrence.
who's listening probably knew it.
Mhm.
And I was in the grocery store right before we were recording today, and I saw the one, and they had a bunch of free. It's amazing how many great beers they have at my local grocery store. And that would be Berry Fresh Farms on Ditmars. They're not paying me to say that. I'm always amazed because I got my last round. I can always find like the Founders KBS. I can always get there.
Right.
And I think not enough people know what that is, that it's somehow there year round because it takes them forever to sell out of it. But I was there and I saw the Three Floyds, and it's called Barbarian Haze.
Okay.
Not surprisingly, it's a hazy IPA, but it's
That
called
would track.
Barbarian Haze. So that is, and that's the conclusion of Hookups. Or unless you had any that.
No, I don't have any hookups. I rely on others usually for my not to give myself a big head, but I often rely on others to tell me when I've hooked up. Because
well, that's sort of the luck I have in after I sober up. I'm the one who edits all this stuff.
That is
and
very
I listen
true.
like, oh, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about there. I know you're concerned about us having enough explicit content, so
yes, thank you.
Even though I felt that happened organically, but
it did. I was.
So I won't even get into the cunts who don't wear masks on the subway.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, the great thing about if you're one of the people who does wear a mask, it's really easy to call the people who aren't wearing masks cunts because they really can't hear you. Because they're mostly very self-absorbed people who are into themselves, who don't think anyone else is talking, and the mask muffles it, so you can just freely say, "Oh, look at that cunt over there." It's
there you go.
And that's where we are in our semi-masked, masked when it's appropriate, unmasked gladly wherever we can. That's our Gotham.
Yeah, it is. We're continuing to and being vigilant with things that might be changing, but for the moment, enjoying the freedoms that we do have. So.
Sure. By the time this releases, there might be all sorts of new rules, and we will follow them. And as beer vengers out there, and good citizens of the world that we all want to stay alive and healthy, we hope you are as well.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. If our fellow beer vengers out there would like to reach out to us to tell us about their adventures, their crawl recommendations, or potentially maybe finding you as a drinking buddy for the Golden Mile, how can they reach out to us?
Or also, honestly, if you think we're full of shit and
there's that too, yes.
we want to put chips in your head, we'll read your emails on the air. We will happily do that. We love. We haven't gotten enough attention that we haven't realized that the whole old adage that there's no publicity, all publicity is good publicity. So far it is for us because we haven't had any. So
right.
So if you get any, we'll be happy to read your emails on the air, and then we might mock you a little bit afterwards, but we we'll entertain the notions anyway. As you were saying, you can email us at thebeervengers@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on social media. That's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Beer Vengers. And if you're really creative, I know every once in a while I think we even got a couple of comments on our Podbean page, but that might have just been Nutpool trying to get attention.
Well, say what you will about Nutpool.
Exactly. All right, I can't think of a better note to end on that. So thank you, Beer Wonder. Thank you to all the beer vendors
Always
out
a
there
pleasure.
listening. And we'll see you next time, whenever that might be.
With the beer vengers, beer vengers, beer vengers.
We're the beer vengers.